Hello, everybody. Akamatzu here with a thoughts video on Final Fantasy IV The After Years, another game in our Final Fantasy marathon. Let us jump into my thoughts on it. As always, we're going to be doing good, neutral, and bad. So let's start off with the good. So, the first thing that I liked about Final Fantasy 4 was that the characters felt more personal this time around. Now, 4, you have this overarching story, right? But it felt like in 4, each character didn't have that much time. This game is a lot longer than 4. It was the longest game in the marathon up to this date. It was 53 hours, where 4 was under 30, around 25 hours. You spend a lot more time in this game with the characters. And I like that. It really feels like you're going on a journey with them. You get to learn about their struggles, you get to learn about their backstories. There's new characters that are usually related to already existing characters, not all of them. And then they have their backstories and then they flush out the already existing characters. I really enjoyed the more personal story that everybody got. Compared to 4, some characters kind of got a little left in the dust. For example, after the events happened with Cecile, Cecile kind of doesn't really develop that much after that in 4. Where in this game, you get to spend a lot more time with the characters and you get to learn about them more. And I just enjoyed that. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this game was how the story is structured in a detective style format. I am a huge sucker for detective stories. If you put a detective story in it, I'm probably going to like it. I really liked how they gave you breadcrumbs and you had to try to figure out what was going on. They wouldn't tell you, they would allude to things, they give you clues, and you had to try to figure it out. In the beginning, this made it very unengaging because this stuff in the beginning is not as interesting. But once I got to like day 3, day 4 of the streams, I really started getting hooked in trying to figure out like, okay, what is going on? There's a lot of stuff going on. What the heck is what's going on over here? How is this happening over there? How's this connected to here? I got really engaged with it more than I thought I was, and I found that it was very enjoyable experience compared to what we have already been given with the prior games. Really liked the detective style with 4-2. Now let's move away from the good and go into the neutral. These are things that I didn't particularly like, but I don't think are particularly bad. And I think the beginning of the game is a bit slow. It can take quite a while to get invested, and I think that is a very deter to people, especially with the change in graphics. Now, this game was made for the iOS, and it still looks okay, but when you plop it up on PC, it don't look that great, especially when you compare it to the pixel remaster versions that look beautiful, right? There's just a lot of things combined with the slowness of it that can be a bit like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like this game, but I stuck with it and it got better. But there definitely was a case where I was like, I'm not sure if I like this one, which I haven't felt prior to any game before this. And I felt like I had to mention it. Again, not necessarily something negative, but not necessarily something positive. So kind of right in the middle. That's pretty much all the things I had to say about the neutral. Now let's move into the things that I thought are bad. And that's the combat. The combat in this game is very stiff, and I know that's a weird thing to say about an RPG, but there just lacks a umph to it, and it's easily the most bland part of the game, I would think. Combat in the Pixel remasters, it gets great. It's the same stuff all the time, but it looks great. It sounds great. It feels great when you do a crit and stuff like that. When you watch it and the enemy goes away. In this game, not so much. Every hit doesn't really feel like it has impact no matter what weapon you're using. Magic does feel great, I would say, because it can obliterate enemies. It feels a little overpowered in this game, but it's very slow and not flashy. The tag team moves you get are cool, but when you tie it to the 3D animation that the game does, unfortunately, it just doesn't look as well as it could Granted, this game is being based off 4 Remake, which was made for the DS and then remade for the iOS, and they're taking the ideas of that and putting it in this, and and you're plopping it on a screen. I'm playing it in 1080, and it just doesn't look that well. It doesn't feel that well, and it doesn't really change. Not really. Eventually, I got set in the motions with, all right, I got the satisfactions of winning and stuff like that and coming up with a strategy, but it just doesn't really ever get that good. Secondly, combat related, there are mobs and areas that will simply mess you up for no reason. It's like you're in an area that's level 20, and then the game will just randomly throw you a level 40 mob. He'll decimate your team, and then you'll have to reload. Not all areas have this, but there is enough that it is completely noticeable. You'll be in a fight, you'll have 2 medium mobs, take a couple hits to put down, but that mob in the back, he does a buttload of damage. Either kills you flat out one hit, or he gets you down to 5% HP left in one hit. When it happens, it feels like it's happening all the time, even though it's not. And it's like, why is this going on? It doesn't feel great when it happens to you. And lastly, maybe more of a personal and taste dislike, but the final boss feels kind of odd. Maybe they could have changed his model and I would have been fine with it, but I wasn't satisfied with it. Luckily for me, I liked the journey a lot, that it didn't hamper the experience that much, but I think the final boss is the weakest one that we have faced thus far in the marathon. All in all, closing thoughts. I had a great time with Final Fantasy 4-2. Going into it, I read a lot of Steam reviews, just trying to get an idea about the game. And it seems there's a lot of people that don't like this game. And I can understand why. It's not the same dislikeness that 2 gets. I think it leads more towards boring comments. And honestly, I can understand why people would feel that way. But I had a great time with it. In my spare time off of stream, this has actually been the game that I have played the most. I don't know what it is. To me, it's interesting. I like the idea of being able to go on an adventure again with characters we already know. I find that fun. The bads didn't really outweigh the goods, and ultimately I walked away from 4-2 having an amazing time. So that's going to conclude my thoughts video. What did you think about Final Fantasy 4-2, The After Years? Have you even played it? Have you ever even heard of it? If you have, let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, maybe possibly share it with your friends. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And I will see you all in the next one. Stay crunchy, amigos.